To Andriy Kulykov. Since long you are one of the three leading television talk show hosts, as Adrian, for example, pointed out, and you are running a weekly political review program, Svoboda Slova, the freedom of the world, at the private television channel ICTV. On the one hand, you are active in the movement Stop Censorship. On the other hand, you are still invited by President Yanukovych. You are one of the rare people who are walking this very sensitive middle ground. And my basic question to you is, how do you manage? Tell us your take on the situation.
Well, I don't know whether in current circumstances it's a praise or whatever.
It's a question.
Yeah. Okay, so my answer is that when I'm being asked such things, I remember Mr. Gorbachev who once said that to the former Soviet Union republics, you should take as much power as you can use. In many cases, the level of the freedom of speech, if it can be measured, is determined by the fact how prepared journalists are to take as much power, as much courage, as much to display, as much courage, as much patience, as much professionalism as is necessary to safeguard the freedom of speech in the country in general and in their particular teams, talk shows, programs, whatever. I think that the examples that Victoria's quoted were very eloquent in showing you how dangerous it is sometimes to be a journalist in Ukraine. Not necessarily even an opposition journalist, just a journalist, because many of us are underpaid, many of us are being publicly vilified by people from the authorities who say, well, there was a famous quote from a member of parliament from the party of regions, Mr. Lubachnik, who said that 85% of journalists in Ukraine are lackeys who would do anything that their masters or owners tell them. I don't think that he has any data to substantiate his assertion, but this is one of the things that is being said about the guilt. However, I think that in many cases the guilt is to a great extent guilty of what is being done to us and what we do or don't do. We've been cutting too much slack to the previous authorities because we sympathized with them and we thought, or they were called Democrats. We wanted to cite these Democrats. Then things changed. New people came to power. And in many cases, what they do is rather similar to what's been done in those 5 years. I'll take one concrete specific example of the formation of the so-called loyal pool of journalists who go and, especially television journalists who go and talk to the president. I remember in early 2005, that was an idea of the then press secretary of President Yushchenko that every news service should designate just one journalist and one cameraman who will be able to film Mr. Yushchenko and all this kind of stuff. There are ample opportunities to work in Ukraine, but one of the major to work in press in Ukraine. But again, you have to make a choice almost every day, almost every hour, almost every issue, what you do, how you view the things, and whether you are prepared to face the consequences. We of late are being, well, at least some of us, but the guild in general as well, are being courted by the authorities because they have conscientiously, to my mind, reintroduced the notion of the press or the media as the fourth branch of power to the public discussion. I think this is a very interesting trap, because if we join this point of view, we become part of the system of power, responsible, and yes, of course, partly responsible, part of the system of power which is in a bad need of change, and where the reform is, to my mind, only just proclaimed but has not yet started in earnest. On the other hand, I think that the slogan of media being by nature an opposition to the existing power of any kind is another extremity which is wrong. We should not be the fourth power or the opposition. We should be inquisitive, we should be attentive, we should be incisive to what is being done by both opposition and power. We should be part of the nascent civil society or a bridge between politicians and civil society. I especially noted that at the beginning Mr. Pifer and then Mr. Kramer used the term pressure on the media rather than censorship or some such stuff. Yes, of course, there is a pressure. It comes from very different sources. It comes from the authorities, it comes from the opposition, it comes from the politicians who watch how authorities and opposition try to win over each other and then step into their shoes and exert as much pressure on media as they will be able when they replace both opposition and power. There's an opposite pressure from public organizations, non-governmental organizations, and it grows. And I think that this is a positive factor because non-governmental organizations become more active. There's peer pressure, of course. There's peer pressure among the journalists, and I think that Victoria can also tell about how she and I feel this pressure. There's pressure from the readership, from our audience. The world is very, very multifaceted. So if I were to answer the question, is there freedom of speech in Ukraine, I would say yes. If I were to answer the question, is there a threat to the freedom of speech in Ukraine, I would say yes. And it depends on us, first of all. Yes, as Mr. Gochuk said, Ukrainian authorities are receptive to international criticism. Yes. But no amount of international criticism, I think, can sort of change things in Ukraine. The ultimate responsibility, yes, lies with us. And in order to survive in this battle of chaos and control that's raging in Ukraine now, we should really get smart, but still remain honest and staunch, and most importantly, to my mind, eager to listen to other people's opinions, however we might not like those opinions.
Thank you very much, Andriy.